West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Cohen.
J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for the architect of the Project 2025 agenda. Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on! That's not what middle America is. And I gotta tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there? Look.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, but who'd have guessed we'd see 2 assassination attempts in the same election cycle? I don't think we've ever seen a guy be so nice and likable while still filleting someone in real time. Tim Walz is like a Midwestern John Wick. That was the new vice presidential pick, Tim Walz, straight up humiliating J.D. Vance over the internet rumors that he'd had a, let's call it, sectional relationship with his couch. And in fairness, the rumors weren't true, but I gotta say, when you are so weird that the internet believes it anyway, that really is saying something, huh? This was part of a rally that was, in my honest opinion, the single best rally I've ever seen. From Josh Shapiro opening up for the duo, to Kamala introducing Tim Walz to the nation, to Walz himself showing America exactly why he was chosen as VP, it was perfection from top to bottom. And it showed that there are now 2 people on the Democratic ticket who can effectively prosecute the case for a second term for Democrats against Donald Trump. Like another killer moment right here.
Now, Donald Trump sees the world a little differently than us. First of all, he doesn't know the first thing about service. He doesn't have time for it because he's too busy serving himself. Again and again and again, Trump weakens our economy to strengthen his own hand. He mocks our laws. He sows chaos and division. And that's to say nothing of his record as president. He froze in the face of the COVID crisis. He drove our economy into the ground. And make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed.
Not only does he highlight Trump's criminality, which has rightfully been a cornerstone of Harris's stump speech, but it also pushes back on this revisionist history that Trump employs while pretending that he presided over some period of mass prosperity. Remember, Trump left office with a net loss of 3 million jobs, an unemployment rate at 6.3%, an economic contraction of 3.4%, and the highest crime surge in decades. And of course, when Biden and Kamala took over, they did what every Democratic administration does when they take over for a Republican administration. They cleaned up their mess, adding 16 million jobs, the lowest unemployment rate in half a century, a record high stock market, the strongest economy in the world, and cutting the crime rate down by 25%. You could fly a 777 in the space between what Republicans say and what they actually do. Walz also weighed in on the most potent issue of our time, the issue of reproductive rights and IVF.
Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. These guys are after my heart chanting, mind your own damn business. That feels good, so thank you. Look, that includes IVF, and this gets personal for me and my family. When my wife and I decided to have children, we spent years going through infertility treatments. And I remember praying every night for a call for good news. The pit in my stomach when the phone rang, and the agony when we heard that the treatments hadn't worked. So it wasn't by chance that when we welcomed our daughter into the world, we named her Hope.
Now, two things happened here. First, Democrats began the much-needed process of reclaiming the concept of freedom that had been co-opted by the right for so long. But let's be clear, you are not some champion for freedom if you're stripping rights away. And second, Tim Walz positioned himself in stark contrast to J.D. Vance, who not only has advocated for an outright end to abortion, meaning he's not even looking to send it back to the states, he just wants it gone, but he himself voted against the IVF bill in the Senate. All the while, Walz himself owes his very family to IVF. The difference here in terms of who will champion reproductive rights and family values versus who is seeking to strip them away out of some blind deference to far-right Christian national ideology could not be more obvious. But here's the most important moment of the entire night, in my opinion, and it came from Kamala Harris herself.
To those who know him best, Tim is more than a governor. To his wife, Gwen, he is a husband. To his kids, Hope and Gus, he is a dad. To his fellow veterans, he is Sergeant Major Walz. To the people of southern Minnesota, for 12 years, he was congressman. To his former high school students, he was Mr. Walz. And to his former high school football players, he was Coach. And in 91 days, the nation will know Coach Walz by another name, Vice President of the United States.
And here's why this is so important. According to polling, about 71% of the country does not know who Tim Walz is, meaning there's a vacuum that's been created right now, wherein he'll either be defined by the left or by the right. Kamala used this opportunity to do the polar opposite of what Trump did at the RNC after J.D. Vance was announced, where he only briefly mentioned Vance before spending 90 minutes filleting himself just to hear the sound of his own voice. Harris told the whole country exactly who he is, gave an entire rundown of who he's been to so many different people in his life, and wasted zero time in ensuring that Americans saw in Tim Walz a patriot, a coach, a teacher, a family man, and so much more. She filled that vacuum immediately and ensured that he'd have the best possible debut to his national audience. And so while Trump allowed Vance to flail because he couldn't even stomach the prospect of not talking about himself for even 5 minutes, here Kamala generously made the Philadelphia rally about her running mate, recognizing that a rising tide lifts all ships. If he does well, she does well, and she made sure that he did well. Contrast that with what happened when Trump was asked if he would have confidence in J.D. Vance if he had to take over.
When you look at J.D. Vance, is he ready on day one?
Does he what?
Ready on day one, if he has to be.
I've always had great respect for him, and for the other candidates too. But I will say this, and I think this is well documented. Historically, the vice president, in terms of the election, does not have any impact. I mean, virtually no impact.
Dude couldn't even pretend to care about the guy. He couldn't even stomach humoring the idea that anyone other than him, other than Donald J. Trump, God's gift to the world, could ever be in power. But the message that the rest of the country got was that he's not ready. And guess what? That doesn't just hurt Vance, it hurts Trump. They are inextricably linked. And Trump just decided to knife the guy who he's attached to, which is probably why Vance is now the least popular VP candidate in decades. He is running alongside someone who is such an egregious narcissist, a megalomaniac, that he would rather abandon his own running mate than cede even a moment, a minute of spotlight. Donald Trump's narcissism is his fatal flaw, and honestly, J.D. Vance is smart enough to know better, even if he's too power-hungry to care. So Kamala Harris and Tim Walz will continue to ride the wave of energy and enthusiasm. They've already raised over $40 million on Tuesday alone, and that's for good reason. It's because people can discern honesty, they can discern integrity, they can discern authenticity. That is why the energy is only with one campaign in this race, and it's not the one that belongs to Donald Trump.
It is Thursday, the 8th of August of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, the little Yorkie, is our door girl. And though she was up early this morning, tail a-wagging, she's taking a little nap at the moment, so we will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Well, we missed yesterday for a couple of reasons. Major one is that suddenly things began to crash. Stopped working on the Mac, which is supposed to handle a lot, so I was stuck because I had to do some on-the-fly repairs, and that also entailed a reboot, so a restart. And to do that means that we got to, cut off the stream and let the Mac. It only takes a moment, though. It's wonderful. Before on the PCs would take forever to reboot and come back on and get everything loaded up and get the broadcaster ready to go. Regardless, it still took more time because also I had to get Precious to her weekly appointment for her IV drip. So we missed yesterday, and I was unable to record a show. I apologize, because then things got busy for any other number of reasons I won't go into at the moment, but, mundane, life stuff. Not life, but just chores, responsibilities. I got all sorts of things going on. What am I talking about? I don't know, but let's get to the matter at hand. That is Little Precious update. Well, we went to the doctor yesterday, and she had her IV drip, and they called early. 2:30. At first, it worried me. But apparently they had a cancellation, and so that bumped our little girl up in line in the operating theater, or wherever they're doing the IV drip, because they also had to do a couple of other things. She suddenly developed some sort of weird stuff in her ears, like dust mites, which is what Ginger had a problem with from years ago, if those of you who might remember. Anyway, Dr. Dickey said he had never seen anything like that before. And we're surmising it's because she has a compromised immune system, that whatever it takes, bacteria or whatever, it doesn't take much. So we're cleaning her ears. I started cleaning her ears like Friday, Saturday. Good thing, because it did help some. But continue to do that. And I got the Serline or Serlan solution, which is another prednisone and an antibiotic, more of a drop type thing. And still got to irrigate the ear canal as well as I can. But it's helped a bit. She seems a little more spry, and she was quite spunky yesterday at Dr. Dickey's. In spite of that, Dr. Dickey did say he doesn't have any idea how long she has. Could be days, could be a week. The bad white cell count is enormous. Higher than it's ever been. So general white blood cell count is one thing, but the one that's going to kill her is higher than it's ever been. But she was up when I got up this morning, tail a wagging. Wanted to go outside and do some business, and I tried to tell her, the sprinkler's still on. Give it a minute. And there'll be a delay between stations. And I don't know. She just decided to walk into a sprinkler and got her a little wet. Startled her. So I had to pick her up and take her to a spot where it was, even after the sprinklers had stopped, she didn't want to go to that spot where she got sprinkled upon. Poor little thing. So dried her off, and she did her business and came back in, and now she's taking a nap, and I'm going to let her. So that's good. We'll see how the day goes. I guess I'm resigned to it. I keep saying that I am. I keep saying the same mantra over and over and over. I don't know how much time I have with her. I'm just going to love her for as long as we have. And that is a good mantra to have. But it's only delaying the inevitable, because I'm still going to be grieving over this poor little life form. Okay, as all life forms should be grieved. Anyway, speaking of grieving, I don't know. Let's not. Let's speak about joy. Because I got to tell you, the people that I've recently grieved for, my mom and my dad, were full of joy. They pretty much insisted on it. I mean, my dad was a fairly responsible, joyous fellow. But when he was filled with joy, he was joyous. Rather than, being just pissed off at everything in the world all the time, and everything's coming down on me, and oh my God, these social justice warriors telling my kid that they should be good people, how dare they? Teaching them commie things like they can change their gender. Give me a break, pal. This is the kind of BS I have to put up with, okay? I'm sure that you've heard this in certain quarters as well. As a reason that we need to get rid of our public schools, well, government schools, and become total homeschool with stay-at-home moms, because being a mom is the most important job in the world, as I'm told. Oh, really? Where have I heard that before? Well, Mom still wants to have a job. You going to pay her? My mom went on strike back in the day. Remember those? I mean, I'm sure that a lot of folks listening here are of age, like me. Similar decades upon this luminous sphere. But remember back when they had the general women's strike where moms across America went on strike for a day? My mom took part in that. Not that she had to. I mean, because my dad, shall we say, was rather enlightened. Not my real dad. He was a wife beater. And worse. But the dad that is my dad, Jack Putnam, was, shall we say, not a misogynist. He believed in equal rights and due process for all, even your wife. So, but my mom did it more for the other gals in the cul-de-sac. Yeah, we lived in Southern California, lived in a little island of 2 cul-de-sacs. A little contained unit there. And we used to have block parties. It was easy. I mean, set up tables right in the street because no one was driving through except whoever lived there. And once they're home, they're home. Anyway, Mom did it more for the other wives in our neighborhood. And what was that is that, hey, we got to stay here and do all this work. Shouldn't we be compensated in some way? And husband said, hell no, I'm not paying for that. Tell him to go get a job. And next thing you knew, they could get a credit card. Finally, women set their foot down and said, no more until we get some equal footing. And they got 78% of that. And women said, we're okay. Well, we can work with that. So, the argument is that, the government schools are keeping our family unit, our moms, from being able to stay at home and take care of us, you little brat. God, these brats. Dad, yeah, he gets to be absent, okay? I never get to hear about what Dad's input is in this except, I don't know, paying for it. That's all he has to do. That's all the love you're going to get is how much I pay. Leave me alone, you little brat. Wow. So your kid is a brat. Just wanted to be sure. And you'll find out that some of these MAGA types were brats when they were kids. Let's be clear. How dare you force me to be a good citizen? Yeah, so, I don't know. What do you do about those people? Tell them that they're weird for the world to hear. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm making a mistake by engaging too much. Maybe. But I still think that it gives, and I'll just be clear. The feedback I get is that it reminds people of the job that we have ahead of us in this coming election. And what we need to do to bring back some semblance of joy and, dare I say, order to our existence on this luminous sphere, because I think people are really fed up with the chaos, the constant grievance, the constant being pissed off. People don't like to be pissed off all the time. Yeah, it feeds on itself, and I suppose in the immediate moment there's some sort of good feeling. I don't know. It's a feeling. I don't know if it's good. But it feeds on itself. And I got to tell you, it is an addiction, and some people are addicted to that kind of behavior. It doesn't mean the rest of us have to put up with it or live it. Okay? Just because you can't handle it, I don't care to handle it. So, I don't know. I think what it really comes down to is I'm getting tired of being pissed off about people being pissed off. So stop it. Okay. Now that we have that cleared up, what do we have in store for you? Well, you know what we have in store for you is what we had in store for you yesterday. I am sorry. I decided that I already built a show, and we're going to do it. we just are. I'm not going to throw it away. I didn't have time to record it, and we're just going to do it because for some reason when I built it, it wasn't necessarily date specific. So I think we can get away with it. But regardless, got busy, and I'll confess, I did a few things that I wouldn't have normally done in terms of some maintenance type chores around the house. And I decided, I didn't do a show today. I got to do this other stuff. And I did. So I did. All right. I guess that's my way of apologizing because I really believe that the show must go on no matter what. And you've seen the kinds of tragedies that I've had to navigate through emotionally and still put out a show. What is wrong with me? I hope that's not weird. Well, the show must go on. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we have to miss a date. Oh, we're sorry, the electricity went out. See? An act of God. Software update, reboot, software crashing because you got to dump a bunch of cash or whatever. Reboot. You call that an act of God, okay? Because it was totally unexpected. Well, expected, but not now. Sort of like the volcano exploding in your backyard. Oh, it's been dormant for 10,000 years. Don't you think it's going to wake up soon? Don't worry about it. Okay, then it wakes up. I don't know where that came from, but we live in a land of volcanoes. I don't know about you. Big one called a caldera. And it's burning people up right now because they're stupid. Do not get into those steam pools. What the hell are you thinking? God. What do we have in store for you in today's Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays? Well, Tim Waltz destroyed J.D. Vance like a Midwestern John Wick there at the top. I like that. Okay, J.D. On the rest of the menu, Arizona grand jurors discussed indicting Trump, but prosecutors urged them not to. We'll see why. Extreme heat is impacting most Americans' electricity bills. Yeah. Jeez. But you got to learn how to live with it. And you can. There's ways. And a Delaware judge rejected a bid by Judicial Watch and the Daily Caller to reopen their fight over access to the Biden Senate papers. They'll complain, oh, it's a Delaware judge. Well, yeah, that's where the court case is, pal. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the trial has started for a Polish man accused of punching Danish Prime Minister in Copenhagen. That should be the Danish Prime Minister. And a Russian pianist has conveniently died in jail while awaiting trial on charges linked to his criticism of Moscow's military action in Ukraine. Very, very unforgiving there. Don't go. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, but I have to mention a couple of things. And one is I totally missed Stephen Miller on Ari Melber because I haven't been turning on MSNBC. I watched Lawrence. Sometimes I'll pick things up when they've recycled the Daily Show in the evening, you know, that kind of deal. At the time that the East Coast get it on the clock, you know, East Coast gets the evening block beginning at 9. For us, it's 6. So sometimes people aren't even home from work at 6 o'clock. So they do the repeat at 9, which is, when people get their time on the East Coast. I don't mean to make it as confusing as it is. Regardless, I'll check in on shows even then and then watch them if there's not something on the Air Crash channel that might intrigue me. That's my go-to. I always watch that show and think about what it would be like if we didn't have regulations. Jeez. We'll just get rid of the NTSB and let this burning hulk of wreckage sit there and no one will know why. Because if we know why, we might have to do something about it. People vote for that. And I guess maybe we have to ask a question of why. We have to let them. So maybe, I don't know, indoctrinating them into understanding why it might be a good idea to have an expert figure it out for the benefit of all of us. Oh, it's going to benefit all of us. That's bad. I am so tired of it. The next issue is, Stephen Miller, apparently he went off. And people, I'm hearing reports on social media that's the excuse. Well, we can excuse it because it exposed him for what a lunatic he is. And my idea is that I don't care. That lunacy, appeals to a certain segment of society, and that tends to be mass killers, and I don't like that. I don't want to trigger them into thinking, oh, wow, that guy's giving me permission. Okay. They give their people permission to be racist bigots, Nazi goose-stepping stormtroopers, brown shirt, crystal knock, break your neck in the middle of the night while with bullhorns, Klieg lights at 3 a.m. in the morning, by the way. And that's supposed to be normal. Okay. They gave permission for that to happen. We don't need permission to be joyous. But it's a reminder that we can have joy and not have to take shit over it either. So, couch this, pal. Alrighty, let us now. Oh, I forgot. The second thing. Pedophile Russian agent John Ritter got busted yesterday. And all I can say is good. Right after he had a meeting with RFK Jr., where RFK Jr. afterwards was bragging about eating roadkill. I've got like an 800,000 square foot freezer full of roadkill. He brags about having a mansion-sized deep freeze where he keeps roadkill. All right. He likes to eat dog. Uh-huh. Okay. And apparently Central Park bear meat. He wanted the meat for roadkill. And let's not forget that he also had doctors remove a dead brain-eating worm from his brain. Which I keep telling people his brain is so toxic it killed a brain-eating worm. I'd stay away from a person that toxic. That's worse than the molecular acid for blood that the alien had in the Alien. Ripley! I don't know. It's only Thursday. It's not even Friday yet. And we missed Wednesday. Let us now tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe because it is Thursday. And it is by Yvonne Wingett Sanchez out of the Washington Post. My. An Arizona grand jury that indicted 18 Trump allies this spring for their role in efforts to overturn the 2020 election had expressed interest in possible charges against the former president, according to a legal motion filed this week by state prosecutors. It is unclear how many of the jurors were in favor of indicting Trump. I apologize. We sometimes have to do some self-editing on the fly for some of these articles because, look, the Netroots Radio style manual demands it. And we must do what we are tasked with providing. So, that stated, let us continue. Yes, it is unclear how many of the jurors were in favor of indicting Trump. I even hate to call him the former president, because was he ever president? Who by then had been federally charged for his attempts to subvert Joe Biden's win in a case brought by special counsel Jack Smith. The interest prompted the Arizona's case's lead prosecutor to give a PowerPoint presentation and request that jurors not indict Trump, according to the motion. Nicholas Klingerman, Assistant Attorney General for the Arizona Attorney General's Criminal Division, cited a rule about prosecuting someone for the same crime twice, as well as a lack of evidence. What? If you do it in public, right on TV, over and over and over, there's no evidence. It just suddenly disappears. Quote, "That is why I have not recommended that in the draft indictment, despite clear indications from you all that there's an interest in pursuing a charge against him," Klingerman told the jurors. The court document offers a rare glimpse into Arizona grand jury proceedings, which are typically kept secret. And how are they not now? The grand jury ultimately indicted Trump advisors, such as former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and supposed attorneys. I remind you, the Netroots Radio style manual demands this editing take place. And supposed attorneys Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, and John Eastman, as well as Christina Bobb. Well, she's also a Russian agent. Let's be clear about that as well. Also charged were the 11 Arizona Republicans who signed paperwork on December 14th, 2020 that falsely described Trump as the rightful winner. Those are commonly known as fake electors. Okay. Fraudulent, fake electors. One of those 11 Republicans, activist Lorraine Pellegrino, who served as secretary of the elector effort, had most of the charges against her dismissed on Tuesday. She pled guilty to a lesser misdemeanor charge that involved the recording of a false document, according to the court docket. Ooh. Do we have a flipper? Pellegrino's attorney, Joshua Colesrud, said in a statement that her decision to accept a plea to a lesser charge reflects her desire to move forward and put this matter behind her. Oh. And force a bunch of other people to do the same or else. And good. Whatever it takes. He said she had received a sentence of unsupervised probation with community service. What? Which acknowledges her remorse and willingness to make amends. Community service for what? Harassing people voting? We'll see. Attorneys close to the case have long conveyed that the pro-Trump electors could provide valuable information about how state party officials in particular describe the elector's strategy to local Republicans who helped carry it out. Oh, well. A spokesperson for the Attorney General's office confirmed the plea deal and declined further comment, saying the details of the agreement were sealed by the court. Is anything really sealed anymore? Trump was not indicted, but was described as an unindicted co-conspirator. All of the defendants have pleaded not guilty. Isabella O'Malley and Lindley Sanders at the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. During the summer, Lavenna Lindahl closes off entire rooms, covers windows with blackout curtains, and budgets to manage the monthly cost of electricity for air conditioning, but even then, the heat finds its way in. Going upstairs is like walking into soup. It's so hot, Lindahl said. If I walk past my attic upstairs, you can feel the heat radiating. You can feel it radiating through a closed door. Lindahl, age 37, who lives in North Carolina, said her monthly electricity bills in the summer used to be around $100 years ago, but they've since doubled. She blames a gradual warming trend caused by climate change. Around 7 in 10 Americans say in the last year extreme heat has had an impact on their electricity bills, ranging from minor to major, and most of us seen at least a minor impact on their outdoor activities, according to a poll from the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. As tens of millions of Americans swelter through another summer of historic heat waves. Just don't call it climate change. The survey's findings reveal how extreme heat is changing people's lives in big and small ways. The poll found that about 7 in 10 Americans have been personally affected by extremely hot weather or extreme heat waves over the past 5 years. That makes extreme heat a more common experience than other weather events or natural disasters like wildfires, major droughts, and hurricanes, which up to 1/3 of U.S. adults said they've been personally affected by. Chase at the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. A Delaware judge has refused to vacate a ruling denying a conservative media outlet and an activist group access to records related to President Joe Biden's gift of his Senate papers to the University of Delaware. Judicial Watch and the Daily Caller News Foundation sought to set aside a 2022 court ruling and reopen a FOIA lawsuit following the release of Special Counsel Robert Hur's report about Biden's handling of the classified documents. Her's report found evidence that Biden willfully retained highly classified information when he was a private citizen, but it concluded that criminal charges were not warranted. The documents in question were recorded or recovered at the Penn Biden Center in Washington, Biden's Delaware home, and in his Senate papers at the University of Delaware. Judicial Watch and the Daily Caller maintain that the Her report contradicted representations by university officials that they adequately searched for records in response to their 2020 FOIA requests, and that no consideration had been paid to Biden in connection with his Senate papers. Well, Her found that Biden had asked two former longtime Senate staffers to review boxes of his papers stored by the university, and that the staffers were paid by the university to perform the review and recommend which papers to donate. Well, the judge refused their request, and it is denied. All right, let us now go to a very short break, and when we get back from that very short break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you yesterday for today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
We're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1994. President Bill Clinton posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Latino farm worker organizer Cesar Chavez. It is the highest honor granted to civilians. His widow, Helen, accepted the honor on his behalf. Chavez founded the United Farm Workers Union. He dedicated his life to organizing agricultural workers in California. Too often, agricultural workers have not received enough attention from labor leaders, despite their struggles to win better wages and improved conditions for themselves and their families. Chavez was one of the most important Latino labor organizers in U.S. history. In 1968, he helped lead a successful national boycott against California grape growers. The boycott won increased wages for those workers and demonstrated the power of the boycott in farm labor organizing. The medal ceremony was held in the East Room of the White House. United Farm Workers leaders attended the ceremony, including Dolores Huerta, the farm union's co-founder and first vice president. President Clinton's remarks in granting the medal captured the impact and sacrifice of this labor activist. President Clinton said, "The farm workers who labored in the fields and yearned for self-respect and self-sufficiency pinned their hopes on this remarkable man, who with faith and discipline, with soft-spoken humility and amazing inner strength, led a very courageous life, and in doing so, brought dignity to the lives of so many others, and provided for us an inspiration for the rest of our nation's history." In his life, Cesar Chavez never made more than $5,000 a year. And yet, the richness of his life and legacy left a lasting imprint on the cause of labor. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Expecting highs nearly the same as yesterday. That was we were supposed to be in the mid-90s. No, we were a little over 100, so we're expecting the same today. Sunny conditions throughout, except areas of smoke will be reducing visibility at times, and it was acrid yesterday. It stunk. And we'll have winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies tonight, except areas of smoke reducing visibility at times. Lows in the low 60s, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. We were not able to open up the doors last night because of too much smoke so that we could cool the house off, so we had to rely upon filtered air through the air conditioner, which I got to tell you, I don't like to do. But regardless, we were able to open the doors and windows throughout the abode this morning around 5 a.m. local time because it wasn't smoky, and yet we better close up right after the show. Grass pollen is rated low here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region, as I was just alluding to, is in the unhealthy range at 156 parts per million. That's unhealthy for people who have, breathing problems. And if it's unhealthy for them, it's going to be unhealthy for the rest of us real soon. Hey, that daytime UV index, even though it's filtered through the smoke, is very high at level 8, so take care if you have similar numbers. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.95 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles, and relative humidity is drying out at 61%, and it will be much drier as we get through the day. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 66 degrees with rain. Paris is 82 and sunny. Rome is 94 and sunny with a moderate heat advisory. Kabul is 75 and clear. Hong Kong is 88 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 83 degrees and partly cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 49 with rain. San Francisco, California is 55 degrees and cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 76 degrees and fair with a small craft advisory. And New York, New York is 68 degrees Fahrenheit, rain, also with a small craft advisory. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. M. Olson at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. The trial of a Polish man accused of punching Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has begun, with Frederiksen not expected to appear in court. She suffered a minor whiplash injury when the man assaulted her in central Copenhagen on June 7th and canceled her schedule for the next few days. The Ekstrabladet newspaper said the unidentified 39-year-old Polish man is charged with punching Frederiksen's right shoulder with a clenched fist, causing her to lose her balance but not fall. Defense lawyer Henrik Carl Nielsen told Copenhagen District Court that his client pleaded not guilty. The Polish man, who has been living in Denmark for 5 years, told the court he was intoxicated by alcohol, but not drunk, and was just wandering around when he saw Fredriksson, Danish public broadcaster DR reported. A police officer assigned to Fredriksson's protection told the court that she had stopped to talk on the phone when the man walked up to her and hit her after saying something incomprehensible. In the situation, it seemed he was angry. The bodyguard, identified only by his police number, KF081, told the court. The Polish man was immediately arrested. Fredriksson was taking a break from campaigning for her Social Democratic Party in European Parliament elections when the assault occurred at a busy downtown Copenhagen plaza. The arrest was not linked to the campaign event. Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Russian piano player has died in jail while awaiting trial on charges linked to his criticism of Moscow's military action in Ukraine. Media Zona, an independent Russian news outlet, reported that pianist Pavel Kushner died on July 28th in jail in Birodizan, a city in far eastern Russia near the border with China. He was 39. He quoted his mother, Irina Lavina, as saying that an investigator told her that Kushner died while being on a hunger strike. They poisoned him. Russian authorities haven't issued any statements on Kushner's death. I'm sorry, they didn't necessarily poison him, but they starved him. Now, he was in custody after his arrest in May on charges related to his criticism of the Kremlin and its action in Ukraine on his YouTube channel. After graduating from Moscow Tchaikovsky Conservatory, Kushner performed as a soloist at Philharmonics in Kursk and Kurgan before joining Birodizan's Philharmonic last year. The Kremlin's crackdown against opposition activists, independent journalists, and government critics intensified since Putin sent troops into Ukraine in February of 2022. Hundreds have faced criminal charges over protests and remarks condemning Moscow's action in Ukraine, and thousands have been fined or briefly jailed, and some have died at the hands of you-know-who. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme aux langues de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.